Alright, so hello everyone and welcome to my overview of the Fortuna update. I've been given early access by DE to a test build to make this video in advance so you can get your hands on it as soon as possible, and the video has been paid for by Digital Extremes. Now, I don't normally do paid videos, but since it's something that I would do anyway and it's something that will hopefully help you wrap your head around all things Fortuna, I decided to say yes. I also want to make this video as spoiler-free as possible, but there are some things I simply cannot avoid, so there'll be some mild spoilers here and there. Okay? Fantastic, so let's jump right to it. So getting to Fortuna isn't actually all that difficult, and if you've played for any amount of time, you have most likely finished all the things you need to do. All you need to do is make your way to the Earth to Venus Junction, which requires you to finish Vor's Prize, collect 20 mods, fuse a mod to rank 2 or higher through the fusion process, and finally equip at least 4 mods onto any weapon or Warframe. And all you have to do after that is go to the Earth to Venus Junction, where you will kill a Spectre, which will unlock your way to Venus, where you will eventually make your way to Fortuna and Vallis through the E-Gate and Unda nodes. However, there are some gear items you can get before you go to Fortuna, which will make the whole experience much easier. One of them being any of the mining lasers from Plains of Eidolon, which will work on the ore you will find in Vallis. The second one is the Infinite Arcwing Launcher, which will make getting around much easier, because not only is Vallis much bigger than Plains of Eidolon, it's also far more dense, so it's harder to get around in. The third one is any of the fishing spears from Plains of Eidolon, because you can once again use it on the fish that you find in Vallis, though you will damage them in the process, so they're gonna be worth far less than the ones caught with the actual spear you can get in Fortuna. And finally, I think it's also a good idea to bring a solid frame and weapon setup, because some of the high-level bounties can get quite crazy thanks to the new wanted system. So you want to bring something that's tailored for the Corpus, so something that does good magnetic, electric, toxin, gas damage, that kind of stuff. Now, once you actually make your way to Fortuna, you have to talk to Yudiko, which is the NPC right next to the lift that leads to the surface, which will start a fairly lengthy introductory/tutorial quest. The point of this is to pretty much just introduce you to the Solaris United, which are kind of like the Ostron in Cetus, so it's the faction you're going to be fighting with, characterize the baddie a little bit, show you why he is the baddie, and generally just show you how the world works, how the bounties operate, how the K-drives operate, and all that kind of good stuff. And once you finish the quest, you're free to do, well, whatever you want. Now let's talk a little bit about the different NPCs you're going to be interacting with in Fortuna. So we have Rudzud, which is the one that will allow you to build kit guns. The Business, or the Biz, who is the guy that focuses on fishing and animal preservation, so he will sell you fishing spears, fishing baits, and other items you will need to catch different animals. Smokefinger, who is an avid geophile, so you talk to him for all things mining. Then we have Legs, who will, surprise surprise, let you put together your very own Moa companion. Yudiko, whose purpose is very similar to Konzu in Cetus, so it's the NPC that you'll be able to take bounties from, though this time around it's not the only NPC that you can take bounties from, and it's also the NPC that will let you progress through the different ranks with Solaris United. Then we have Ticker, who is kind of different to anything we've had before, and what he allows you to do is basically pay someone else's debt and you get some goodies in return. Next on the menu, we have Little Dug, who is very similar to Onko in Cetus, so she represents a different faction to the Solaris United. She has a bunch of operator cosmetics, and let's just say that she has something to do with fighting the different types of spoilers out in Vallis. And the final NPC is kind of hidden away, and you will have to go through this vent to get to her, and that NPC is Rocky, who will let you customize your K-drive. Now let us talk about bounties. So as I've briefly mentioned already, unlike with the Cetus bounties, Yuriko isn't the only NPC you can get bounties from, because you can also get them from Solaris United agents in Vallis, which is really good, because that means you don't have to go back to Fortuna every time you finish a bounty and you want to pick up a new one. There is one agent that's standing right next to Fortuna, but every now and then as you're touring Vallis, you will find this console that has an orange beam coming out of it, and if you insert a data mass, which by the way will drop from a random enemy that's near the console into the console, it will trigger a short defense event, after which the base the console was in will be owned by you, so you will get another agent there. The agents, by the way, are very easy to find because they're marked by this blue icon on both your heads-up display and your minimap. Now the bounties in Vallis are a little bit more varied than the ones in the plane, so you might get a bounty that requires you to sneak into a facility, place a trap on the road, load and trap one of the crazy unicycle clown cars that the Corpus are using to get around Orb Vallis, or something as simple as killing an X amount of certain unit or an X amount of any unit. And once again, those aren't the only types of bounties you will run into. There are some excavation, defense, assassination bounties, and all that kind of stuff. Now, one thing that makes these bounties, especially the simpler ones, far more interesting is that every bounty has a bonus objective, and if you complete that, you will get far more standing once you finish that stage of the bounty. If we take the coil drive bounty, the one you're watching right now, as an example, you can see that the bonus objective is to finish the bounty with the coil drive having more than 70% health. Some other examples here would be to, let's just say, infiltrate the facility without raising the alarms, or finishing your extermination bounty within a certain amount of time. And I think it's important to note here that the bounty doesn't fail if you don't complete this objective, you just don't get the extra stuff at the end. Now, one thing that's different with these bounties when compared to the bounties that you find in Plains of Eidolon is that they are very often not anchored to a specific spot. Like the bounty you're watching right now, it just says kill 15 ospreys. It doesn't say kill 15 ospreys in this area, so if there are no ospreys in the area you're in, you can just jump on your K-drive, or I guess use your Arcwing launcher if you're boring, and go somewhere else. And speaking about the K-drive, this thing is utterly ridiculous, so you can just summon it in from your gear wheel and you can press the use button to get off and back on again. Now, I'm not gonna go over all the tricks you can do on the K-drive, because that would easily double the length of this video. There is that much stuff you can do. But what I am gonna say is that the K-drive is amazing, and it makes traveling around this enormous area that is Orb Vallis incredibly fun, and it made me not want to use the Arcwing launcher at all. They even give you points for doing cool stuff, and if you don't land your tricks, yes, there are ragdoll faceplants. And yes, they are glorious. There are even K-drive races scattered throughout the entire Orb Vallis that you can do. And they are sort of your standard open world races. You talk to a dude, or in this case one of the K-drive kids, you have a certain amount of time to make it to the end, and you have to drive through all the circles, or in this case spheres, to finish the race. And these K-drive races, by the way, is how you get standing with the K-drive kids, because they're a different faction, they're not with the Solaris United. The races are also very easy to find, because the kids will be marked by a purple icon on both your heads-up display and your minimap. I say kids, it's actually the same kid every time, he's called Boone. Moving on to mining, which has changed a little bit. You still have blue and red deposits for gems and ore respectively, and you still need a mining tool to extract it, but the way you extract the materials is different. You no longer have to trace an outline around each deposit. Instead, each deposit has between 1 to 3 points that you have to heat up to a certain temperature, and depending on how close you get with this temperature is how many resources you're gonna get from each deposit. Fishing has received a bit of an overhaul as well, because you're no longer catching live fish, but instead you're catching servo fish. And the whole minigame has been made far more active, because it's no longer just throw spear at fish, you also have to match the frequency of your spear to the frequency of the fish. And just like the fish in Eidolon, there are many different types of servo fish that you can either just give to Biz for some standing with Solaris United, or you can have Biz disassemble the fish for different parts that are used in crafting. And now let's talk a little bit about animal preservation. So every now and then, as you're touring Orb Vallis, you might see one of these icons on your minimap. That icon marks a starting point for one of the hunts. Well, it's not really a hunt, you're not gonna kill the poor thing, you're just gonna trank it. What you need to do here is run up to the pile of, for lack of a better word, things that will reveal the animal's tracks that you need to follow to a call point. But I'm getting ahead of myself, because before you do that, you need to talk to Biz and buy yourself a trank rifle and a lure. Now, there are 4 different types of animals that you can preserve, and they are the Bola Rola, there is the Pobbers, which is the cutest one, Kubrodon, and finally the Verming. You won't be able to track all 4 of them in the beginning though, because at the start you can only buy the Pobbers lure, and you get access to the other lures as you progress through the different ranks with Solaris United. The animals are actually quite distinct from one another, because each animal has its own territory where you will find it in Orb Vallis. They have different tracks, different calls, and different behaviors, like this chap over here that decided to headbutt me as soon as I took out the trank rifle and then just legged it. This genuinely surprised me actually, because none of the animals that I had tracked before did this, so I just panicked and let it get away. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about kit guns and MOAs. However, the video is already pretty long and I was on a dev build, so the stats were probably not final, so I'm just gonna do a quick overview for you guys. So very briefly, the MOAs are built out of 4 parts, all of which affect the stats, but the model will also affect the precepts, the gyro will add an additional ability, and the brackets will change the polarities of the MOA. And kit guns are built out of 3 parts. You have the chamber, which affects the fire mode, so whether it's a laser pistol or a rapid fire pistol. grip, which affects the fire rate, the fall off, and also the damage, and the final part is the loader, which affects ammo capacity, reload time, status chance, and crit. Both of these systems are also fairly similar to Zol's in that once you build the item, whether it is a MOA or a kit gun, you need to level it up to maximum before you can gild it, which will give you some additional stats and let you customize it. And that's pretty much all I wanted to say, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video and it will help you wrap your head around all things Fortuna, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.
Sons and daughters, by the heart of who we are, making peace to build a future, strong, united.